I was in a hurry the other day, as you can well imagine, running into a corner store close to home here in Texas. One of those quick trips, where you got to get a list that you put in your head, and you're already halfway back to your car before you've even walked in the door. That's me. I always forget something too. But on this occasion, I passed an older woman in the aisle. Must have been in her 80s. She was standing, just frozen in the aisle, like she was trying to think about something, but something was different. So I approached her. Something made me stop. I almost didn't, because I had stuff to do. I had somewhere to be. Same as you, probably, right now. But I stopped. And I asked her, as I often do to others, she was all right. And she wasn't. I won't tell you everything she told me, because that's not mine to tell. But I will tell you, I ended up standing in that store a lot longer than I planned to. Longer, in fact, than my schedule had room for. But not longer than God had already carved out for that moment. Because some moments aren't on your calendar, they're on His. And what I shared with her in that moment on that day, I haven't been able to shake it since, because I think it was not just for her. I think it's for you too. Now, maybe you're listening from right here in Texas. Maybe you even shop at that very same corner store. Or maybe you're tuning in from somewhere else entirely. I love it. So many of you are all around the world. You might be listening somewhere in Europe, Japan, or one of those favorite nations in Africa that I love so much. Maybe Australia, Pakistan, Philippines, Brazil. You're out there. And wherever you are, however far this signal has reached you in this moment, I want you to know something. If you are fretting over tomorrow because of what today has handed you, I may have something for you. What I gave that sweet woman standing in the aisle, that might be exactly what you need to get from today into tomorrow. Stay with me. This is the Marc Little Show. I'm Marc Little, and I'm your host. And we'll be right back. Welcome back. This is the Marc Little Show. I am Marc Little, and I am your host. This episode is called Finding Peace in Uncertain Times. The prayer that has never failed you. I want to go back to that woman for a moment, because before I tell you what I said to her, I want you to understand where she was standing when I said it. She wasn't lost. She wasn't confused about who Jesus is. She had known him longer, in fact, than I've been alive. But standing there in that aisle in that store, she looked like someone who felt like she had to ask permission to bother God with the burdens she was carrying. I think a lot of us feel that way right now. Not because our faith is small, because the news is so loud. And loud things have a way of making us feel like we're standing outside somewhere, waiting to be let into God's presence. So here's the first thing I told her. And it's the first thing I'm going to tell you. You are never standing outside. There's a moment in the Bible right when Jesus died on the cross where something miraculous happened inside the temple that most people read past too quickly. See, there was a curtain in that temple, thick, heavy, that separated ordinary people from the presence of God. You didn't walk through it. Only one man did, and only once a year. And even he had to be careful how he did it. Matthew tells us what happened the moment Jesus took his last breath. It's over in Matthew 27, verse 51. I'm reading from the NIV, the New International Version. And it says, at that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. Now notice which direction it tore, top to bottom. Not a man on the ground reaching up and tearing it down from his side. No, God from his side reached down, tearing it from his side. That's not a detail you skip past. That's the whole message in one sentence. God did not wait for us to fight our way in. He tore the door open himself. So when you feel like you're standing outside, wondering if it's okay to bring something as ordinary as your fear about the news, hear me. You were never standing outside. You've had a way in this whole time. The war didn't close that door. The Middle East, Gaza, didn't close that door. The economy didn't close that door. Nothing happening in Washington, D.C. or anywhere else closed that door. It's still open. It's been open since the moment Jesus took his last breath and until he took his first. Now, here's the second thing I told her. And it's really the reason I couldn't just keep walking. She said something to me that I think a lot of you have said to yourselves lately. She said, I've been praying, but I don't know if it's doing anything. I understand that feeling. But I want to tell you what prayer actually is, because I don't think most of us were ever taught this properly. We treat prayer like something we do when everything else has failed, like a last resort, like a spare tire you keep in the trunk and forget about until you're stranded somewhere. But that's not what prayer is in the Bible. Paul tells the church at Thessalonica something short and almost impossible to obey on the surface. 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 17, it says there, pray continually. Not pray when you remember. not pray when things get bad enough. Pray continually. Because prayer was never meant to be something you catch up on later, the way you might catch up on sleep. It's more like breathing. You don't store up air on Monday, so you don't have to breathe on Thursday. You need it now. And then you need it again in a few seconds. And that's not a burden. That's just how you're alive. Jesus said something almost identical. In Luke 18, verse 1, it tells us he taught his disciples that they should always pray and not give up. Always pray. Don't give up. Those two things are connected because the people who give up are almost always the people who stopped praying first. Let me tell you another story, because I think stories carry this better than explanations do. There was a man named Peter. Peter was a disciple, and he had been put in prison because his death was to follow the next day by Herod. He was chained in between guards. His execution was scheduled the very next morning. Nothing that friends could do could reach him or save him. No leverage, no lawyer, no appeal. He was chained with an execution date. So what did they do? Acts chapter 12 tells us the church was praying earnestly to God for Peter. They didn't have access to Peter. They had access to God. And that turned out to be enough. An angel woke Peter up with urgency. The chains fell off his wrists. And he walked out of prison. The doors opened. He girded himself. He put on his sandals, his garments. The doors opened that were locked, and he walked out. And he walked over to the house, the church where they were praying, and he knocked on the door. They didn't even believe it was him at first. And they let him in. And they saw the miracle of Peter released from jail. It startled them. That's real. That's not a Bible story. That's what prayer does. It reaches places that we can't reach. But I want to be honest with you about something, because I don't want you to believe that prayer promises to fix everything. That's not always what prayer does. The night before Jesus was crucified, he prayed so hard that Luke, who was his doctor, tells us his sweat became like drops of blood falling to the ground. That's not poetry. That's a real physical response to real anguish. And here's what I want you to notice about this. His prayer that night in the garden didn't stop the cross. It didn't cancel what was coming the next day. But it did something else. It got him ready to walk into it. When the soldiers came for him a few minutes later, he wasn't caught off guard, and he wasn't running. Jesus was ready. That might be the most important thing I can tell you today. Your prayers about what's going on in the world, Iran, Israel, Gaza, your own bills, about whatever's coming in this election in November. It might not change the headline tomorrow. I can't promise you it will. But they will do what they do for Jesus in that garden. They will get you ready to walk into whatever tomorrow holds. That's what I told that woman in that store. Whatever you're carrying, you don't have to have the outcome figured out before you bring it to God. You just have to bring it. This is the Marc Little Show. I'm Marc Little, and I'm your host. And I'll be right back. Welcome back. This is the Marc Little Show. I am Marc Little, and I'm your host. We're talking about finding peace in uncertain times and the prayer that has never failed you. There's one more thing I told that woman in that store that I'll never forget before I finally had to walk her out and go. And I think it might be the most practical thing in this whole episode that you'll hear. She told me she didn't know what else to do besides worry. And I told her about a king named Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat was facing an army coming against him that he had no way of defeating. He didn't have the numbers. He didn't have the strategy. He was by every earthly measure about to be slaughtered. So, he did something that doesn't make sense until you understand what it actually is. 2 Chronicles chapter 20, verse 21 tells us he appointed men to sing to the Lord and praise him for the splendor of his holiness as they went out at the head of the army. Read that again. He sent singers out ahead of the soldiers, not behind them for safety. No, ahead of them first. And here's what happened. While they were singing, while they were praising God for who he is, before they'd seen a single sign of victory, God caused their enemies to turn on each other. The battle was already won before Jehoshaphat's army ever swung their swords. I'm not telling you that if you sing a hymn tonight, the war overseas ends tomorrow. That's not what I'm saying. And I won't stand here and promise you something Scripture doesn't promise. What I am telling you is that worship was never meant to be the thing you do after victory. Sometimes it's the thing God uses to get you to the victory. So here's what I want to leave you with, friends. You don't have to fix the war, the current events that are troubling you, the economy. You don't have to know who to trust in Washington, D.C., or even in the news. That was never your assignment. And carrying it like it is will wear you out in a way God never intended for you to be worn out. Your assignment is much simpler, and it's one you already know how to do because you've been doing it practically, for most of you, your whole life. Stand. Pray. Trust the God who tore the curtain, who heard the church praying for Peter, the God who met Jesus in that garden and gave him strength to walk out of it. The same God is standing with you right now. And whatever this season is asking of you, you have not lost what has always kept you. That woman in the store, before I finally had to say goodbye and get back to what I was supposed to be doing that day, she looked a little different than when I first walked up to her. Not because of anything outside of her had changed. The same worries were probably still there when she got home, but something on the inside of her had settled. And I believe wherever you're listening from today, whether you're right here in Texas or on the other side of the world, that same thing can settle in you right now. Whatever tomorrow holds, God is waiting there for you. And he's not asking you to figure it all out. He's just asking you to keep talking to him the way you always have. And if you haven't, now's a good time to start. So let me bless you. From the word, Numbers chapter 6, verse 24 through 26. May the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. This has been the Marc Little Show. I am Marc Little, and I am your host. God bless you.